I just want to tell you about something new that I've been developing. It should be of interest if you're interested in retro adventure games and if you're interested in programming in Java or in C#, or in fact in other programming languages, but particularly Java and C#. It's called the Bitwise Interactive Fiction Framework, and it's a set of source code classes that you'll be able to use to write text adventures. Now, it's based on this book. This is the book that I wrote on adventure game programming in C#. Now, I've started off by developing this further for Java. So if you wanted to program in Java on whatever operating system you're using, you'll be able to use this framework. You can see here I've got all these code units for parsing user input, all the different objects to define rooms and treasures and so on. Now, the Java version of the code at this time, the time I'm recording this, in the late summer of 2020, that's not yet released, but I will be releasing it soon. In the meantime, I've updated, or I've started to update, some of the code for C#. Now you can see this is based on the C# code that I wrote for this book, but I've started to extend it to have a better parser, the ability to deal with user input. If you download this, be sure to read the README file. That will tell you the current state, all the new features I've added, and all the limitations. In this initial release, there's only really one major addition, and that's to the parser. I should say there's actually something else as well. The data, the initialization code, has been moved into these two files here, game data, and that's to define, for example, the map, all the rooms and the treasures they contain, and vocabulary data, and that's to define the words, the nouns, the verbs and so on that the game understands. So those have been divided out for modularity into those two classes. Now, the next important step once I've done this is to start using a greater variety of words than I explained in my book. And in particular, what I wanted to do was to let the user enter things like take the ring, and the game would query, do you mean the gold ring or the silver ring, if there are two rings present. That's something that you'd find in the old Infocom, the traditional adventure games, which wasn't in my C# game that I described in my book. And so that's really where I'm going with this. I want to have lists of adjectives that can be applied, and in fact you could have multiple adjectives. Take the small gold elvish ring, put the big brown box into the small, well, you get the idea, that the whole list of adjectives to be able to distinguish between multiple objects of the same type in your game. So that's starting in this version of the Interactive Fiction Framework with this subdirectory here. You can see this in Visual Studio. This is a namespace, the grammar namespace, and I've got all these different types of grammar classes. Now, in the next video, which I put online soon, I'll give you a brief introduction to those grammar classes. In the meantime, if you want to download the source code, as always, it's available for free. All you have to do is to sign up to our mailing list on bitwisebooks.com, download the source code, play around with it, extend it, see how you can use it, and if you've signed on to the mailing list, I'll let you know whenever I update the source code and add more features onto it. To learn programming in depth, enroll in one of my courses or read one of my books. More information at bitwisebooks.com.